Caulfield.
We recently had a visit to Dublin to meet with a range of people. We met with politicians of all parties. We met with businesses who have businesses cross-border and who have businesses both in Ireland and the UK. We met with ordinary citizens who are concerned about the impact of Brexit, particularly on Ireland and Northern Ireland, and particularly on the peace process. And they were all very clear they want no border at all in any form between Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland. But they also said there's a lack of a clear message from the UK government on this, with the Prime Minister saying the aim is not to have a border, but the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland saying there'll be no special arrangement for Northern Ireland, and one can't happen really without the other. So could you clarify what the UK government's position is around a border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland?
You have to be careful about use of language in Northern Ireland, because things like special arrangements in the politics of Northern Ireland and so on. So let me be as plain as I can about the practicalities of it, which is the real issue. The first thing to say is this: the first foreign state I went to was Ireland, was Dublin, and I met Enda Kenny, and of course Charlie Flanagan and the Deputy Prime Minister, who covers Justice and Home Affairs, to talk about this, amongst other things, talk about this issue specifically. Now, and then I went on, it's actually relevant, I then went on to a British-Irish Chamber of Commerce dinner where I talked to a lot of people who actually dealt with issues across the border. And it's incredibly important in economic terms to Ireland as well as the political terms. Now, the fact is there is a border there now, and there are excise duty differences across the border, which are collected, which are dealt with. But they're dealt with in a subtle and not highly visible way. And the trusted trader scheme I was talking about before is the sort of thing that operates. And that's what we would have in mind. Now, it's not going to be easy. It'll cost us money. It'll cost us a lot of work on technology and so on to sort of maintain the border controls on goods, as it were, but without having border posts and so on. And that's what we intend to do. That's what we intend to do. Actually, I mean, if it's possible, and you square this circle this way, it's possible that we end up with similar systems to what we use in Northern Ireland on the border. If we're using trusted trader electronic systems, there's those exact same systems that we use in dealing with sending things to Rotterdam, as well as sending things from Belfast to Dublin or vice versa. So we are in no doubt about this. We are not going to do anything which jeopardises the peace process. And it's not just us, it's not just the Republic of Ireland, both of whom are absolutely committed to this. We have ongoing talks, and indeed the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland has got them going on at the moment when he's not dealing with the rather more pressing issue he has at the moment. It's also the Commission. And this may sound odd, but the Commission has a strong emotional investment in the Northern Irish peace process. And indeed Michel Barnier, my opposite number, has. I mean, when I went to see him the first time, there was a slight sort of humorous element, because he said, there is no negotiation without notification, right? And we went through all of that, we talked about that, and then he said, but let's talk about Northern Ireland. I mean, because he had this personal involvement in it. I am confident that actually the two nations and the Commission between them will be able to solve this, because we really want to, because the technology is better than it was 20 years ago, and because we all understand the value of it. On the other issue, not just goods, on people, the common travel area will apply. I mean, what we will aim to do is pretty much identical to what the 1949 Act, which gives effectively citizenship rights to the citizens of each country in the other country. So that's our determination.
Okay.
Sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but it's an important issue.
Well, certainly when we were over there, the feeling was that there's a lot of warm words from the UK around the situation in Ireland, but there's no actual clear solutions. And we're days away from triggering Article 50. And, Ireland, both Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland need certainty about what's going to happen. So can you be a bit more specific about what's going to happen around custom checks to goods? Because particularly in the agri-food industry there, animals are reared, say, in the north, they're sold in the south, then they go back and slaughtered in the north, and they're processed in the south, and workers are crossing that border, not just once a day or twice a day, but maybe on an hourly basis.
In numerous tens of thousands, I know.
So can you give us any specifics around customs checks on the border going forward?
We will. The point here is this is a problem. This is a practical problem that needs to be solved, not just words, as you say. And for a practical problem to be solved, we have to have tested systems. We have to have systems.
So have we not got those yet, even though we're
Not
days
yet.
away?
We've got quite a lot of design work to do. But no, that's underway. That is underway. HMRC are working on this at the moment. The Northern Ireland office are working on it at this moment. We're having discussions with the Irish Republic on this at the moment. So that's all going on.
Okay, so that's a work in progress. So what about the common travel area? Have we got agreement from the other 27 member states that the common travel area, we can resort to what was there before we joined the EU?
I don't foresee a problem. There is, in the Amsterdam Treaty, which I had put there, a specific reference to the common travel area. It is phrased, however, in terms of 2 member states. So plainly that will fall out. But I don't see that should provide a problem. Now, partly because I think it's also one of the underpinning elements of the peace process. I think keeping that. If we took that away, that would knock a leg out of the peace process. So I cannot again see. I mean, the only hiccup you could imagine is if the Commission itself said, well, we can't have this special arrangement. I don't think they're likely to do that.
Okay, so that's
it's certainly not. It's our intention, and it's the Irish Republic's intention to maintain it.
Okay, so that's still also a work in progress. So what about?
No, stop. Let's not put words in my mouth. What I have said to you
is
plainly what we intend and plainly what we inspect. If you want to put a label on this entire hearing, you can call it all a work in progress because we actually haven't engaged in the negotiation yet. I'm telling you very specifically, this is a very well-defined, intended policy. Please do not reinforce the problems you were talking about in Northern Ireland by calling everything a work in progress. That's why people get worried about this.
Well,
we're aiming very plainly at a very clear outcome.
With respect, we were in Dublin a few weeks ago, and this is, what we were told by politicians in Ireland, that they have huge concerns about the uncertainty, and they want certainty as soon as possible. So could you give us any clarity about funding for Northern Ireland, because currently they get a huge amount of funding from the EU, and they are concerned that once we pull out of the EU, that they will have severe funding pressures.
Much of this has already been given. I mean, look, the large part of it is either in structural funds and in CAP funding and so on, of which the Treasury has already given underwriting Pillar 1, bids on Pillar 2, and so on. And this is basically all guaranteed effectively up until 2020, which is the end of the current a multi-year financial framework anyway. It's a 7-year period. I'm sure you understand the dynamics of it, and that's underwritten already. So that's been done to date. So again, I think this is a concern, but it's not actually substantive at the moment.
Okay, so just it's very commendable that the first meeting you had was with Irish ministers, and I understand you said earlier that you meet with the Mayor of London, for example, on a monthly basis. How often are you meeting with Irish counterparts to discuss these issues?
Well, my ministers altogether, it's not just me, because I'm getting stretched a bit thin, but my minister, I can't remember, it's over 20 meetings, do you remember, Olly? It's something over 20 meetings so far.
Okay, and so are there set meetings built in as we go forward?
Yes, and when the number of things. I mean, there's obviously the ongoing relationship with the Irish government, and we have an issue with the Northern Ireland executive at the moment because it's not in place. And when the election was called, I actually specifically invited the ongoing ministers, sort of holding brief ministers. There's no government, but the ministers still, as it were, hold the brief. I specifically invited them from both sides of both parts of the outgoing executive to make sure they came. The Prime Minister had an explicit meeting with Sinn Féin, I think, if I remember correctly, and I'm due to have a bilateral with them. There's lots of it going on. There's no problem for them of access to us, I don't think. But of course, there are other issues, Ms. Caulfield, going on at the time in Northern Ireland, which is taking their attention too.
Thank you very much indeed.